I was lying on the cold ER bed, blood trickling down my arm, when I texted my sister, "Can you come get me?" She read it. Then, nothing, no reply, just the blue check mark staring back. At first, I told myself maybe she was asleep. But when the nurse said, "We can't reach any of your family," something cracked inside me. I gave everything to them, my time, my money, my loyalty. But in the moment I needed them most, I was utterly alone. That's when I knew the car crash didn't break me. My family did. The fluorescent lights in the ER buzzed like static in my ears as I lay there, staring at my phone screen. The message I sent to Savannah was simple, 6 words. "Can you come get me, please?" I knew she was awake. She always stayed up late, scrolling through Instagram or watching TikTok until her phone died on her chest. The message said, "Read 2:07 a.m. That was 23 minutes ago. 23 minutes of silence. 23 minutes of blue check marks and no response. My hand trembled, not from the crash, not from the stitched gash on my shoulder, but from the hollowness of knowing she saw me in pain and chose not to move. The nurse returned, her voice gentle but rushed. "We're trying to reach your emergency contacts, but no one's answering. Do you have anyone else we should call?" I blinked at her, lips too dry to open. The word family stuck in my throat like glass. Then a man in scrubs, older, possibly a doctor, stepped beside my bed, glancing at my chart. "Melissa Parker, right?" He turned to the nurse. "Wasn't that name on file last month? The younger sister, Savannah Parker, she was here, wasn't she?" The nurse frowned. "Yes, she signed out against advice." Then she looked at me. "Your sisters?" I nodded slowly. "Why?" The doctor didn't answer directly. He exchanged a look with the nurse and walked away. Something unspoken passed between them, and something darker began to take root in my chest. I closed my eyes, willing myself to remember better times, or what I had thought were better times. Savannah used to be the type to jump on my back and hug me until I fell over laughing. When we were younger, she used to say, "You're my whole world, Mel." That girl, the one who gave me homemade birthday cards and cried when I cried, that was the sister I clung to like air. But even then, there were signs. She'd tease me in front of her friends, calling me the second mom or Mel the martyr. Once, she told a guy I was dating that I had abandonment issues and was a bit too intense about family. She laughed when she said it. I laughed too, because it was easier than asking why. It wasn't until I hit 30 and started therapy that I began learning the term trauma bonding. Love that comes wrapped in guilt. Affection laced with control. I had always thought Savannah was just blunt, just wounded. But now, lying here in this hospital, I was starting to see the full picture. She had a way of making her care feel like a privilege. When she helped me pick out an outfit for my job interview, she reminded me afterward that I'd still be in sweatpants if it weren't for her. When I lent her money to cover rent during college, she cried and told me I was her hero, and then didn't pay me back. Ever. Each gesture of closeness came with a silent invoice. I just never noticed I'd been paying. I'm going to say 5 things Savannah used to tell me, and if you've heard any of them from your own loved ones, I want you to really sit with that. You're so sensitive, I was just joking. Don't act like you're the only one who sacrifices. You're lucky I'm still talking to you after how you treated me. I know you mean well, but you always make it about you. I love you, but you're exhausting sometimes. Have you heard those before? I had, 100 times. I used to think it was normal. That family meant loving through the jabs, that sisters were supposed to make you cry and then wipe your tears. But now I know better. Now I know that love doesn't twist your sense of self. Love doesn't manipulate you into silence. I remembered the day of our father's funeral. Savannah sobbed harder than anyone, gripping my hand, her mascara staining my sleeve. She said she didn't know how she'd live without him. 2 days later, I discovered she had withdrawn $200 from our shared savings, the one we opened to manage Dad's medical bills. I didn't confront her. I told myself she was grieving. I told myself she would pay it back. I told myself family doesn't fight over money. But it wasn't about the money. It was never just the money. It was about a pattern, a rhythm, a cycle of give and take, where I always gave and she always took. And now, here I was again, bruised, bleeding, and utterly alone. With a read receipt instead of rescue, I dialed Savannah. The ringtone buzzed in my ear, sharp and cold. 1 ring, 2, 3. Then it clicked off. Not voicemail, not busy, just cut. I stared at the screen for a moment, wondering if I had imagined it. I hadn't. I called again. Same thing. Her number lit up, then disappeared. She was declining the calls, intentionally. A nurse walked by and glanced at my chart. "We've called your emergency contact," she said softly. Still no answer. The doctor from earlier returned, clipboard in hand. "Melissa, we may need a signature if your condition worsens. Is there anyone who can act on your behalf?" "She's not coming," I whispered. She saw my message. She declined the call. The doctor hesitated, then scribbled something. As he walked away, I overheard him say to the front desk nurse, "Can you check if Savannah Parker has been here before? I'm almost sure she's familiar." The receptionist tapped her keyboard, then paused. "Actually, yes, she was here about 3 months ago. Emergency psychiatric intake, left against medical advice." My stomach dropped. Psychiatric intake? That wasn't the twist. The twist came a few minutes later, when the nurse handed me a clipboard with discharge forms. "Sign here," she said, then added casually, "Oh, and your sister accessed your file earlier this year. Looks like she logged in under your joint insurance account." "What?" My voice cracked. "She didn't take anything, it was just viewed," the nurse said. "But I'm obligated to tell you, privacy protocols." I took the clipboard. The login ID was hers, Savannah Parker 89. And suddenly it all made sense, the way she'd known things about my appointments I hadn't shared. The time she commented on my lab results, even though I never told her I was being tested. She had been watching me, accessing me, quietly invading my private life, under the pretense of sisterhood. That night, when I got home from the ER with gauze still on my shoulder, I pulled out an old spiral notebook and opened to a blank page. Across the top, I wrote, "Every time I let her in." Then I began. Age 18, lent her money for books, never saw it again. Age 20, took the blame for her broken dorm window. Age 24, co-signed her car lease. She defaulted. Age 27, she crashed with me for 2 weeks and stayed 8 months. Age 30, paid her portion of Dad's cremation. She promised to reimburse me, never did. Age 32, found out she was telling people I'd gone off the rails when I went on medical leave. Age 35, accessed my medical file without my consent. Age 36, left me on red after a car crash. I stopped writing, tears wetting the paper. Funny, the brain's capacity for denial. I'd told myself these were small things, mistakes, misunderstandings. But when stacked together, they formed a staircase I had walked up blindly, and each step had cut me deeper. I looked back and thought about that one birthday when she cried because I gave her a photo album with pictures from our childhood. She hugged me like it was the most meaningful gift she'd ever received. Then I remembered my last birthday, when she handed me a blank card and said, "Oops, I meant to write something but ran out of time." You know what I'd say anyway. Do I? Do I really know? If you've ever had a moment like this, where your memories start folding in on themselves, I want to ask you something. Do you remember the first time someone you loved made you feel like a walking ATM? The moment you realized your value wasn't in who you were, but in what you gave. That night, I went online and pulled up my joint bank history. Years ago, I'd given Savannah access just in case. I never removed her. Now I scanned through transactions. Most were old, but one caught my eye. 3 weeks ago, $350 debt settlement processing to a company I didn't recognize. I Googled the name. It was a luxury spa, one Savannah used to post about on Instagram. The caption still burned in my memory. Self-care Sunday, treating myself because I'm worth it. The spa was in my name, the payment in my name. She used my money to pamper herself, while I was rationing groceries after a month on unpaid medical leave. My hand hovered over the mouse. I wasn't angry yet. I was becoming something else. The next morning, I created a new folder on my laptop. I named it exactly what it needed to be: proof. Inside, I began dragging every screenshot, every email, every payment receipt I could find. My hands trembled less now, not from fear or sadness, but from a quiet focus. I wasn't spiraling anymore. I was documenting. I started with the most obvious, the spa transaction. Then came the older messages, the ones I used to reread with affection. Now they made my stomach twist. One in particular stood out. Savannah had texted me years ago when she was struggling with school. "If it weren't for you, I'd be nothing. You're the only person who's ever believed in me." It felt warm back then. Now I saw the hook inside it. Weeks later, she used that same warmth to guilt me into co-signing a car loan. The car registered under my name. When she stopped paying, the calls came to me. I took a screenshot of the message, the loan contract, and the overdue notices. All of them now lived in proof. Then something unexpected happened. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Hey, I think this was meant for someone else, but it's about you. Thought you should know." Attached was a screenshot. It was a group chat, and Savannah's name was at the top. "Melissa, she's not really family. She's a walking wallet in a trench coat. I just have to cry a little and boom, rent paid." My chest tightened, not just at the words, but at the blunt cruelty of it. That wasn't frustration. That wasn't a moment of stress. That was who she was when she thought I wasn't watching. I didn't respond. I didn't rage. I copied the message and added it to proof. One click at a time, the myth unraveled. Later that week, I found myself parked in front of a small brick building on the other side of town. The name on the brass plaque read Dr. Leanne Brooks, PhD, psychotherapist. She used to be my mother's therapist back when Mom was spiraling from Dad's diagnosis and Savannah was starting high school. I hadn't spoken to Dr. Brooks in over a decade, but something told me she remembered us. She did. When I explained why I was there, she leaned back in her chair, quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Your sister always had a gift for performance, even as a child." I nodded slowly. You saw it too? She knew how to create chaos and then position herself as the victim. Your mother defended her constantly, called it passion, said she was just expressive. But I worried it ran deeper. She didn't break confidentiality, but her insight filled in so many blanks. I wasn't imagining things. Savannah's patterns weren't just mean, they were calculated. A few days later, I received a message from my great-aunt Hester. We hadn't spoken in years. She'd been labeled toxic by the family, someone who didn't understand Savannah's spirit. Her voice cracked over the phone. Melissa, I never stopped praying you'd see through it. She used me too. Took my jewelry under the pretense of safekeeping, told everyone I had memory loss. I felt sick. I tried to tell your mom, Hester added, but no one wanted to believe the golden child had claws. We cried together. Then I asked her to write down everything she remembered. She agreed. 2 weeks later, another surprise. A message from Erin, a girl I vaguely remembered from Savannah's college days. They'd fallen out years ago, something about a loan gone wrong. I don't expect forgiveness, she wrote, but I wanted to help. She attached a voice memo. I played it. Savannah's voice came through, sharp and clear. You just have to make Melissa feel needed. That's her whole thing. She wants to be the savior. She doesn't even see that she's a pawn. I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. I saved the recording and added it to proof. Here's what I've learned. Manipulators rarely work alone. They cultivate silence. They build alliances. They discredit the voices that could expose them before those voices ever speak. And sometimes you're one of those silent witnesses without realizing it. So I'll ask you something personal. Have you ever been the person who looked away while someone was being used because it was easier than facing the truth? I had, about myself, about everyone else, but not anymore. Savannah's annual Christmas party was legendary in our family. Every year she sent out elaborate invitations, curated playlists, themed drinks, and of course, one mandatory dress code, red for bloodline. She claimed it symbolized unity, loyalty, and roots. This year's invite never came. I found out through a cousin's Instagram story. Everyone was there, red dresses, suits, laughter. Even the family members I hadn't seen in years were sipping eggnog and posting selfies under a banner that read, Family First. I watched the story twice before closing the app. My name wasn't tagged, my absence wasn't noticed, or maybe it was exactly the point. I didn't cry, I wrote, handwritten letters, each one addressed to someone in the family. Not email, not typed. My handwriting, familiar, personal, unmistakable. In each envelope, I included a short note, 2 sentences long. Before you toast this year, I hope you'll watch this, for the sake of honesty and the family you think you know. Beneath the note, a QR code. The QR code led to a private video link. It opened with Erin, the girl from Savannah's college years, sitting in a neutral room, staring directly into the camera. She began, I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing this because I wish someone had warned me. Savannah Parker manipulated me. She borrowed $2,000, promising to pay it back in a month. It's been 8 years. That's the small part. Then she played the recording. Savannah's voice, low and casual. You just have to make Melissa feel needed. That's her whole thing. She wants to be the savior. She doesn't even see that she's a pawn. As long as she thinks you love her, you can do whatever the hell you want. There was a pause, and Erin looked back at the camera. She said that in my living room, thinking I'd laugh, I never did. But I didn't warn Melissa, and I'm sorry. The video was 10 minutes long, clear, direct, undeniable. I mailed the letters 3 days before the party. Then I waited. On Christmas Eve, the calls started. The first was from my cousin Daniel. He didn't say hello, just, I had no idea, I feel sick. Then Aunt Clara. She used my name to take out a payday loan, said it was for a surprise trip for you, but it wasn't. I didn't ask questions, I just believed her. I received 6 more calls that night, all the same tone, disbelief, shame, grief. One, though, stood out. Uncle Ron, always loud, always joking. His voice broke on the phone. She told me you were unstable, that you had delusions. She said she was protecting us from you, but it was her, all along. She was protecting herself. I listened. I let them speak. I didn't tell them it was too late, because for me, it wasn't about rebuilding with them. It was about truth finally having a voice. Later that night, I sat by my window, watching snow fall in slow, silent spirals. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vengeful. I felt still. But the storm hadn't hit yet. Savannah posted at midnight a photo of herself by the fireplace, holding a glass of wine, captioned, "Cheers to cutting out toxicity." Some people will twist anything to make themselves the victim. Mental illness is real, so is gaslighting. Then came the hashtags, Sarah mental health awareness. Sisters can be abusive too. She wasn't subtle. Within hours, comments flooded in. Some offering support, others questioning her timing. A few even tagged me, asking for context, but I didn't respond. Instead, I uploaded a statement, brief, factual, surgical. I posted screenshots of her accessing my medical records. I attached the voice memo. I included dates, receipts, records. I didn't use adjectives. I didn't insult her. I let the evidence speak. Then I logged off. The next day, I received an email from a journalist, then 2, then 4. I declined them all. It wasn't about going viral. It was about balance. By New Year's, word had reached her employer. The private school where she taught sent a formal letter of suspension pending investigation. A parent had seen the video. They had questions. So did the board. I didn't celebrate. I took a walk in the snow. Outside, the world was silent except for the crunch of my boots. Trees lined the road like quiet witnesses. I exhaled and watched my breath fog in the cold air. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. Not for exposing her, not for stepping back, not for choosing myself. I had spent years trying to justify the pain, to forgive it before it was even acknowledged. I had excused, rationalized, swallowed, but not anymore. My family didn't break because I spoke. It was already broken. I just stopped lying about it. It started with a TikTok. A woman named Krista, username It's Clear the Smoke, posted a video sitting in her car. The caption read, "Storytime, the golden girl who scammed half her family and used her sister as a scapegoat." She didn't say Savannah's name, but the details were unmistakable. The red dress Christmas parties, the weaponized tears, the fake mental health crusade. It all matched. Within 24 hours, the video had 500,000 views. People began stitching it, commenting, tagging their friends. Other names appeared, anonymous profiles, former colleagues, classmates, ex-friends. One by one, they came forward. Each had a piece, a story, a pattern. She borrowed $800 from me in college, said it was for textbooks. She bought designer boots. She told our manager I was stealing tips because I got promoted. She flirted with my fiancé, then told me I was too insecure when I confronted her. The more that surfaced, the clearer it became. This wasn't a mistake. It was a modus operandi. I watched quietly. I never commented, never corrected. I didn't need to. The truth was finally working for me. Then came the twist I hadn't expected. An old colleague of mine messaged, "Hey, remember the scholarship fund you started for underprivileged girls in our county? You might want to check the grant allocations. Something's off." My stomach turned cold. The fund had been my proudest project. A small nonprofit I helped co-found 5 years ago. When I stepped back due to burnout, I let Savannah manage some of the logistics. Just the admin. I trusted her. I logged into the portal. The transactions were there, dozens of them. Funds rerouted, withdrawals masked as program expansion. Names of recipients I didn't recognize. When I clicked into one, the contact info was a burner email, and the mailing address, a P.O. box registered to Savannah. I sat there staring at the screen, my pulse thudding in my ears. She hadn't just stolen from me. She had stolen from girls who needed that money. She had turned generosity into a revenue stream. This time, I didn't hesitate. I compiled every document, every email, every transaction record. I filed a formal complaint with the Attorney General's office. I contacted the board. I forwarded everything to our legal counsel. Then I waited. What followed wasn't swift, but it was thorough. They launched an investigation. The fund froze pending audit. Savannah was summoned. Her lawyer requested a meeting. The board rejected it. The press caught wind of it weeks later. Headlines ran quiet at first, then bolder. Educator accused of financial misconduct in nonprofit grant scandal. Her name trended on Twitter for 2 days. Meanwhile, I went back to living, not surviving, living. I started a small online course called Breaking the Bloodline, Escaping Toxic Family Ties. It wasn't flashy, just 5 modules, built from everything I'd learned the hard way. I expected 20 people to sign up. 500 did. I ran Zoom sessions, shared resources, answered questions. Women cried, men nodded, teenagers wrote in. Some said they were still living with the people who hurt them. Others had just escaped. A few were still figuring it out. I didn't have all the answers, but I had a flashlight, and sometimes that's all people need to start walking through the dark. Soon after, a journalist from a major outlet reached out. She'd read the scholarship scandal reports and followed the viral posts. She asked for an interview. I agreed on one condition. No name-calling, no labels, just truth. She listened. She wrote the piece. It went viral. I started getting emails from people around the world. Messages like, "I thought I was the only one whose sister weaponized love. Thank you for showing me that I'm not broken. I was just groomed to believe pain meant loyalty. This gave me the courage to block my mother today. I'm finally breathing." It was the kind of justice courts don't hand out. The kind that restores more than reputation. It restores voice. And here's where I'll ask you something personal. When was the last time you forgave? Not because you were weak, but because you were finally strong enough not to carry it anymore. I forgave Savannah, but not out loud, not in a letter, not in public. I forgave her by stopping the bleeding, by ending the cycle, by refusing to let her hurt me again. That was the only closure I needed. As for Savannah, she went quiet. No apology, no explanation, no final plea for redemption. And for the first time in her life, no one rushed in to save her. Not mom, not cousins, not friends. Silence followed her like a shadow she couldn't outrun. The golden girl had finally run out of gold. The first thing I did was change my number. Not out of fear, not out of anger, just necessity. I didn't send a mass message, no explanations, no farewells, just silence, intentional and sacred. The old number was a highway that had only ever led to exhaustion. This time I chose back roads. I stopped going to family functions. I stopped checking tagged photos. I stopped needing to know who was asking about me or if anyone missed me. That need, once urgent and constant, faded like background noise after a storm. Not because I no longer cared, but because I finally understood the difference between connection and captivity. I bought a small cottage near a quiet lake 3 hours from where I used to live. The air smelled different there, less of gasoline and unresolved grief, more of pine and possibility. The floors creaked, the windows were drafty, the roof needed work, but it was mine. I planted herbs by the kitchen window, lavender, mint, rosemary. I didn't know what I was doing, but it felt right. Every morning I'd water them, whispering names of things I wanted to grow in myself. Patience, kindness, clarity. I started writing again. Not emails, not legal statements, real writing. A book, maybe. Or just pages that held things I no longer wanted to carry. Some nights were hard. The silence stretched long and sharp. There were moments I almost reached for my phone to call her, to ask why, to beg for the version of her I remembered. But I never pressed the buttons. I'd sit with the ache, then remind myself, peace is not the absence of pain, it's the presence of self-respect. One day, while sipping tea on the porch, I received a letter, handwritten, no return address. But I recognized the penmanship. Inside was a single line. I hope you're happy now. No signature, just guilt disguised as communication. I burned it. Not out of spite, but out of reverence. That chapter was closed. Months later, I was invited to a small retreat for survivors of toxic families. It was the first time I sat in a circle of strangers and said, "My sister hurt me." No one flinched. No one asked if I'd tried harder, loved better, forgiven enough. They nodded. Some cried. One woman whispered, "Me too." It was the most human I'd felt in years. That led to an invitation I never expected, a TED Talk. The organizer had followed my work online, read the article, watched the momentum unfold. "We want you to speak," she said. "Not about revenge, about restoration, about choosing yourself." The title came to me instantly. When your bloodline becomes the battlefield. Standing on that stage, under hot lights, looking out at hundreds of faces, I didn't feel fear, I felt release. I told my story, not for sympathy, not for applause, but for someone out there who still thought love was supposed to hurt. After the talk, a teenager came up to me with shaking hands. "My mom says I'm broken, but I think she just doesn't like who I'm becoming." I looked her in the eyes, then become louder. She smiled. I still keep a copy of my speech on my desk, not for validation, but as a reminder of what it took to get here. Healing isn't loud. It's not always triumphant. Sometimes it's brushing your teeth when you don't want to. Sometimes it's not replying to a message that begs for the old version of you. Sometimes it's planting lavender and watching it grow slower than grief, but it grows. One morning, after months of not thinking about her, I wrote myself a letter, not to Savannah, not to the past, to me. Dear me, the day she left you unread was the day you rewrote everything. You stopped being the character in her story and became the author of your own. You are not cold for walking away. You are brave. You are not alone. You are free. You are not broken. You are building. And most of all, you are finally home. I folded the letter and placed it inside a jar next to my desk, not to revisit the pain, but to honor the woman who walked away and never looked back.